Hello everyone, this is EIPIP meeting 19. The agenda I'm going to share in the chat. So the first item on the agenda today is onboarding EIP editors. This was to set the expectation and guidelines for the editors that we are planning to onboard. We have limited number of editors and the numbers of open pull requests are way too many for few editors to handle. So Edson conducted some survey. So Edson, would you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, so results from the survey is so the time commitment required for new editors would be 0 to 5 hours a week, so relatively small. That's 1 hour per working day at most. A minimum requirement would be someone who is already reviewing EIPs, someone who understands the, what a standard is and understands what content should be left out of what a standard is, and someone who understands Ethereum to an intermediate level and is a good mediator for contentious conversation. So the task that would be expected, just so we could let them know for new editors, would be that making sure that the EIPs are well formed and technically complete, reviewing EIPs for proper grammar, structure, if it's related to Ethereum, and then picking up PRs that aren't merged automatically by the auto merger bot. So for recommendations, I think the only one was recommended was Light Client for EIP editor.
Yeah, I see a few comments. I have linked it, like maybe in one of the previous agenda, you wanted to discuss some points like should EIP author create a reference implementation and client as requirement? Oh, sorry, is it something related to a different topic?
Yeah, that's a different
yes,
topic.
That's a different topic.
Okay, my bad. So yeah, and we were hoping to, get these things, the expectations and the responsibilities. Would it be possible to get it documented somewhere, or maybe HackMD file, or how do you want to see it? Okay, so
yeah, that's better.
Thank you. So I was mentioning like we should try to document all these things. I'm not sure if EIP1 would be the good place to document all these things, or do we want to keep it in HackMD? What is general opinion here?
To document it, like we could write an article maybe on requirements for your EIP editors, or put it in a repository somewhere.
So repository somewhere, or maybe in the EIP1.
I mean, I'm not quite sure if it belongs in EIP1. I'm not sure if it belongs in the EIP repository at all, like requirements for editors.
As always, my vote is not in the EIP's repository.
I mean, I could write a quick article on it on Medium, and then we could refer to new people to that.
Yeah, I feel like as long as there is an article somewhere that people can know what the information is, that should be fine, personally.
Okay, I do not have any strong feeling that where it should go, but yeah, I agree. Like as long as information is available and people are able to access it, it's fine. But you know, the reach would, I mean, like it's my personal thought again, which is like the reach would increase if we have it mentioned, even the link of the article that you are writing, mention it somewhere which is easily accessible to community. And that somewhere most of the time comes to my mind is EIP1, like just mention it that EIP authors responsibilities or the expectations are mentioned in this document, just link back to the document, medium document, whatever you publish.
Yeah, so what I was thinking is EIP 1 is for anyone thinking of writing an EIP. But the people that it would apply to EIP editors, what their responsibilities are, would be just the editors themselves, and not just editors, but new editors. So it's a very small amount of people. So at the moment they become an editor, we could just send them like personally that link to that repository article.
Yeah, makes sense.
Did you want to get to the comments from that from the agenda?
Okay.
So these were brought up in the survey. There weren't things that I thought of, but different suggestions that people had for the EAPs themselves. And let me open it up. It was, should a reference implementation be made as a requirement? Should there be a tagging system? Should the EAP include use cases? Should the EAP include pros and cons? So these were a small selection of suggestions other people had made throughout the survey. We wanted to discuss it. Greg was saying that those suggestions can fit into the already existing format. If that was the case, maybe we could include them under those sections within EAP1, saying these are optional, like suggested. Like you can include a set of use cases within the motivation section, stuff like that.
I think I personally have seen these things in some of the EIPs, but I have not reviewed some, I mean, not looked into too many. Mika, you have any thought on that?
I think the idea with that is that, like already you can include those things in motivation. That is the appropriate place to include use cases, and we have advised people on that. At the moment in EIP 1, users, it's not clear enough to users what the different sections mean and what is appropriate for them. And so we often, as editors, end up having to kind of walk people through, okay, this is what goes in the abstract, this is what goes in the motivation, etc. So anything we can do to help users get it right the first time without an editor having to jump in and tell them how to do it is valuable. Whether this is valuable enough, I'm fine with it. Like I don't have a problem with adding it. I think in general, though, we do need to get better descriptions into EIP1 because as they're written right now, users are not understanding it. And like people who read EIP1 walk away not really understanding what goes in each section. So this would help with that. It's not the whole problem, but it's at least part of it. So I'm in favor. Again, this is nothing new. Nothing's really changing. It's just more of an user education thing.
Right. So, like, would you want to take a stab on it, like open a pull request with specifying these things? I mean, these are already there, but in the specific categories, maybe? And
Yeah, I can write a pull request.
Okay.
What were the other ones? So one of them was the one I was commenting on specifically was the motivation use cases one. What were the other? I think 2 or 3.
A reference implementation. So
Oh yeah,
that
one was for that one was for me. At the moment, people I've noticed are using the implementation section as a way to basically advertise their product that they're trying. Basically, people are using EIPs as an advertising thing. Like the belief is, hey, lots of Ethereum users are reading EIPs. So if I go and create an EIP that documents my app, then I can put a link to my app in that EIP and people will learn about my app. And I really want to get away from that. And so the way I've been handling it is telling people, hey, try not to link, just put code directly in this repo. Don't link out to external repos. And the argument I generally make to users is that we want to make sure that the EIP's repo never gets 404 links and all that stuff. But really what it comes down to is we don't want to open the doors for turning EIPs into like a place to advertise. And it is a huge amount of work for us. Like I would say well over half the EIPs I review, in my opinion, don't need to be standards. They just are someone documenting their app on the EIPs repo. And so it's a big burden on the editors to constantly be dealing with that. And so anything we can do to make it more clear that, hey, this is not a section where you go link to your app. This is a section where you put code, is kind of what I was going for. To play devil's advocate, since the other people who don't like this idea aren't here, I'll try to represent them as best I can. Their argument is that the implementations, for someone trying to write the spec, it is very useful to be able to go look at someone else who has written the spec. And so in those cases, a link out to a third-party repository can be very valuable. And oftentimes those repositories are much bigger than is reasonable to put in line in the EIP or even as like in the assets directory. And so by constraining that section, the implementation section, to reference implementation specifically and requiring that people inline their code, we're making it harder for people to kind of provide code samples that other future developers can follow.
On this topic specifically, I would like to make a mention here. The cat editors started PEEP and EIP series that is dedicated to EIP, and we discuss about proposal. The very first episode of that is about creating an EIP. I mean, Lightline, Matt, he has described certain use cases when to do's or not to do's, and when you think that you should come up like making a pull request to propose that as an EIP, like you should not be just one case specific, as Mika mentioned that it was just one app specific, but you should be very sure of that it is equally applicable to many other applications. So I think, I'm not sure if it is appropriate to make a mention of that, we can probably put a link of that and people can go and watch that, because in that Lightline has explained a lot of stuff which would be very helpful when you are creating an EIP for the first time.
Yeah, and I think the more we can educate users, the better. But there's also the separate problem of users who are educated but ignore the rules in order to try to advertise their product. And those are the ones that I'm kind of more interested for this particular, the reference implementation thing. I'm trying to make it so it's very hard for such people to be able to use EIPs as an advertising channel, mainly because as an editor, I believe all the editors have agreed that we do not want to get in the business of deciding what is worthwhile as an EIP and what is not. And so by removing the opportunity for someone to use EIPs as a means of advertisement, we don't have to then decide, okay, this is valuable as an EIP or this is just an advertisement. Because there's a lot of EIPs are kind of borderline where it's like, I think this is really just an advertisement for an app. But I mean, the user can make an argument, and now we are getting into the debate of, okay, is their argument sound? Is it a good argument? Whereas if we just made it so they couldn't advertise, then all those people would kind of just go away, and they wouldn't even try to fight us, because even if they did get an EIP created, it wouldn't help them advertise. And so I guess there's two problems. One, people writing EIPs don't know how to write good EIPs, and I think the PEEP and EIP episode that you talked about is great for that. Improving EIP1 is great for that. The separate problem, getting people out of EIPs who are just trying to advertise, I think isn't going to be solved just by education. I think we need other solutions for it.
Yeah, I think maybe some kind of guidelines. I mean, like, of course, these are the guidelines, but there should be some rules, like maybe criteria defined, like in in what cases there are high chances of it getting not accepted. That is not formally announced anywhere, or it's not listed. Is it something that can be considered?
So at the moment, basically the only thing that gets you kicked out of the EIP's repo is if it's not technically sound. Like it's very cut and dry. There is no wiggle room for editors making opinionated decisions. It's just like, does this meet the technical requirements of an EIP? Yes. Okay, it's an EIP. Historically, the editors have all, and I actually agree with this, the editors have all been very hesitant to introduce any judgment calls by the editors. Like we've tried very hard to make it so all the editors, our only job is to just make sure things are technically sound. Like make sure they're written correctly, make sure the grammar's right, make sure the bot passes, make sure that the spelling is good, make sure that the things are in the right sections, etc. And so this is why we don't have any rules like this is why we don't have any fuzzy rules. All our rules are very clear cut, which is also why I would like a rule that is clear cut that makes it you cannot link to your personal repo in an EIP. Like I said, there are downsides to this. It means that for the legitimate use cases, people can't link to repos. And so if we want to stick to our hardline stances, we need to choose. Do we want to allow people to link to personal repos and project repos in the EIP? Or do we want to say no external linking at all? You have to include everything in the EIP. Or do we want to break our historic position of editors don't make opinionated decisions? I think those are the three possible paths forward that I can see.
I can see one thing that you have mentioned, that mentioning their personal EIP, GitHub repo, that is there in most of the genuine cases, because while working on some project, they came across something, and that is again sent to the EIP repo as a pull request. So it is going to be linked back in most of the cases. So I'm not sure if that can be a hard rule. But in my opinion, like, editors should have all the powers to make rules. It's not that if they are taking a step back, who is going to do that? I understand this is a community project, but somebody has to like step up and take these responsibilities to set rules.
So I agree things would go way smoother if that was the case. However, historically, all core devs has this exact same problem where everybody is very hesitant to give anyone else the power to set rules and enforce rules. And so I'm not confident that would go over well. I do agree with you, though. Things would go way better if we had like an authority figure or figures who just said, no, I do not accept, and I don't need to give you a reason. Or at least I don't need to convince you of my reason, I should say. But yeah, that's it'd be very hard still, I think.
So curious, sorry. So what's the issue of just saying no linking external code in the repo? I mean, I understand it would be more difficult for certain projects, but then couldn't those projects just write out, hey, like, and I understand that like having a link would make it easier, but it seems like it's, yeah. What's the main issue against, I guess?
As I understand it, and again, I'm trying to represent people who aren't here, so it's best if we get it from them once they're around. But my understanding of their issue is that they're concerned there are some EIPs that, when implemented, are very complicated, particularly core EIPs, where implementing a core EIP, like a reference implementation, may be like Geth. Like that's your reference implementation. It's like an entire repository of stuff. And like the EIP is implemented, all over that repository, like especially EVM changes. There's not just like one line somewhere where it's like, oh, here's the EVM change. It's like, here's the entire EVM, and here are the 12 different places in that giant code base that we touch with this EIP. And so reference implementation for those are very difficult. Whereas if you're just linking to Geth, then it all of a sudden becomes much easier. You can just say, hey, here's the Geth repo. They've implemented it. Here's the 15 files that you want to look at if you want to check to see, the places that this touches. Whereas a reference implementation is like, okay, go write another client. Is kind of the reference implementation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess like the issues that you were proposing of people or teams trying to simply use the repo as advertisement is, I would assume that's not something that usually happens from client teams though. So could from core EIP. So could core EIPs have a specific distinction of allowing links just to keep things the way it is, and then just have all other EIPs not allow links? Would that be a way just to kind of be like, hey, well, you know what, these more complicated EIPs, we're going to allow links still, but try something different with, or this new way of doing things with other EIPs potentially?
That could potentially could help. I think that there are situations where an EIP is complicated enough to probably warrant its own, linking out to a separate repo, and it's not a core EIP. Those are definitely much less common. I think I'm not against that, what you just suggested. Again, playing devil's advocate, I think the argument is we're now adding more complexity into our process because now we have to draw a line between what is core and what is not. And there have been examples recently and in the past where it's kind of blurry sometimes what's a core API and what's not. And then like, what if someone's linking out to a fork of Geth, and because it's not implemented in Geth yet, so it's just their fork. But what if that fork ends up being, another Ethereum client or another Ethereum network, like TurboGeth, for example, is that part of Ethereum network? It doesn't actually sync with the Ethereum network right now fully, I don't think. But they're also not, building for Tron or something. Yet there are Ethereum clients that are forked from Geth that are building for Tron. Should we allow them to link? Like, it's just, I think there's going to be a fear and pushback of like, where do we draw the line? Because now we're the arbiters of what is an official client, and historically no one has named any official clients. Like, Geth is the most popular, but there's Open Ethereum, there's Nethermind, there's Besu, there's TurboGeth, and the line there is very blurry of, okay, where do we draw the line? Who's allowed to do this and who's not? Again, I'm not against what you suggested. That's a problem I can see coming up potentially.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Well, it makes sense to kind of mention this thing, like in this particular group, this EIPIP group, what we are trying to do is kind of improve the process, which is ongoing. We discuss about some of the issues and we brainstorm potential solutions and try to come up with solution. But the implementation part, in my mind, would not be effective if we are not getting support from everybody and if they are not willing to accept the decisions that are being made, or the proposals, actually, if not decision, the proposals that are like going out from this meeting. So will it make sense to kind of gauge the all core devs sentiment on this part, like how good it is to define certain rules? Like, so far there are not hard lines, now we want to define hard lines. Is it something that is acceptable? Then this particular group can come up with certain rules and we can share it with them to collect thoughts.
So if I pretend to be James for a moment, I will say that putting my James hat on, I think James would say we're trying really hard to separate EIPs from the core devs and not have. They are a user of the EIP's repo, but they are not special. They're not authoritative. Basically, we don't need to get permission from the core devs to do anything. The EIPs is not a core dev thing. It is a totally separate entity, separate people managing it.
Totally get it.
So just, again, I suspect that's what James would say if he was here.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting the point here. So in that case, in my mind, it feels like, the EIP authors should be like the group, the people who should be like making rules, and we, the cat herders or the EIPIP group can support to get it enforced. Like, we should list it out. Okay, I see that Greg has referred to some of the comments, I mean, like related to the roles, responsibilities of EIP. editors.
Before
Yes.
before we move on, what was the third item, Edson?
Pros and cons. And let me go back to.
Sorry, Pooja, I just want to make sure we finish this before we move on. That's all.
Yeah, sure. It's
So,
about the
Or
use
at least
cases.
go over everything.
Use cases, pros and cons, and reference implementation. And one more thing was tagging system.
so Greg said that EIP is already tagged with labels in GitHub. I'm not. Yeah.
I don't think that's the same thing.
Yeah. So for tags, I don't know what would be added. So like tagging implies that multiple tags could be applied to a single EAP, and then it'd be used to filter maybe like in the EAP website. And then pros and cons, we could maybe suggest that for the motivation section.
So as far as those two, okay, good. I think I'm lagging a little bit.
We can hear you.
So the pros and cons, I'm fine with. Again, I feel like that something goes in motivation. We should make EIP1 better and encourage people to put that sort of content in the motivation section, not in the abstract, not in the simple summary, not in the specification.
Yeah, I agree. What about a tagging system?
I'm not against the tagging system, personally. I worry that what is a tag and what isn't, and which things get tagged with which things is going to be complicated, and I don't know if it's worth it. Like, my personal opinion is people should really only be reading final EIPs. Like, too many people read draft EIPs, and there are relatively few final EIPs. So, I don't know if we have enough final EIPs to warrant having a mechanism for filtering them yet. And for draft EIPs, I'd rather people just like get them out of draft.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So tagging would be more beneficial if we had an overwhelming amount of EAPs, especially in final. I'll make the PR to EAP1, and then it could be reviewed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think by making this PR, new people will get to know like what should be added more in their proposal in the pull request. So that's about it. And the next item in this was also refer and open issues. Okay. On the expectation guideline, there was already a pull request open as role of editors in EIP process. I'm not sure. So did you also consider that while considering the expectations for EIP editors?
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear you. Can you read that?
Okay, so there is the next topic, which is on the agenda item first about the expectation of responsibilities of EIP editors. There was also an open pull request talking about these things. I think it's 1467, pull request 1467. role of editors in EIP process. Just wanted to bring it to your attention while documenting the expectation, if this can be considered as well. Okay, anything more on agenda item 1 on onboarding EIP editors? I think we came up with 2 decisions. One, Edson would be writing up a Medium post on EIP editors' expectations and responsibilities, and he would be also opening a pull request for to EIP1 for what more could be added when we are proposing an EIP. Okay, so the next item is EIP repository scope and editor's duties. Talking about Yep.
Just one thing before we move on. I'm looking through the issue and it's saying that EAP editors assign numbers. I don't think that's actually true. We should probably update the EAP at 1 with that.
I think I have seen some comments of Greg on that part. He mentioned that it is actually the role of editor, but most of the time author does by themselves. They do it like, I don't know. I have found that bot does not give it a pass if we don't add the EIP number or something like that. I'm not sure.
So the AP number right now is determined by the pull request number,
Right.
which isn't in EAP1, but that's how it's done. I think we should update EAP1 to reflect that, because that's not actually a role of the editors right now. They just suggest using the PR number.
I think that's the opposite. The editors, if I remember correctly, I need to read it again, but if I remember correctly, the editors choose whatever number they want. It just so happens that the editors right now choose the PR number.
Yeah, I think, and this is also mentioned in EIP1. The current EIP1 that mentions it clearly that it is the responsibility of an editor to provide the PR number, the EIP number to any pull request. So yeah, it's completely up to them.
Oh, because I was looking through the core devs chat and they had suggested I think they had decided that the AP number is the pull request number.
Generally, it is
That-
that. Yeah, generally it is that. But if editor wishes to give some other number which is open, and yeah, they can.
Has that happened?
Yeah, a couple times it's happened where something other than the pull request number was used. One time it was because someone was trying to squat, and so we punished them by giving them a different number. Like they're trying to squat on a particular PR number, and the way they did it was they spammed the EIP's repo with a bunch of issues to bump the number up to what they wanted, and then they took the number they wanted, and we just said no, and we gave them something different, and that made them very sad, and that made us very happy.
Yeah, so I think that that does not need to change. I mean, that will still be considered under the responsibility of an editor to provide the pull EIP number, even if it is the same as the pull request number.
I don't know. I mean, generally, like, so I think it's the exception where the EIP editor changes the number, but in most cases the EIP number is the pull request number, and I don't usually see authors asking permission from the editors for that in that case.
Yeah, currently that is the case. The vast majority of EIPs are just the pull request number because it's easy. We've also given people, like, if they start with an issue, and like we recommend they do, they start with an issue as an idea, they flesh it out a little bit, then they create a draft. Sometimes we'll let them use their issue number instead, just because like maybe they've already referenced it or they've already talked about it. What is the advantage of codifying that or solidifying that? Like, is there a problem with the current system?
I guess like the biggest benefit would be to new new authors because it's not anywhere in the EIP1 that that's the way it's done. So
Oh, you're saying we could save the editor some effort. Like right now, author creates an EIP, they put TBD in the EIP number, editor just immediately posts a comment saying change this to the PR number. You're saying we could avoid that step if the authors just did put the EIP, sorry, if the author is filled in on the first draft.
yeah, exactly.
Well, on the contrary, I believe that keeping it with the editors will help us prevent some squatting thing as well, right? So if we don't do that and if we allow the editors to just choose the PR number, then I'm not sure if we would be able to stop that.
We could also just specify in the EIP1 these things aren't allowed, like inflating opening issues to get a specific number, or opening a PR with that's empty for a specific number.
Yeah, and that's how
Yeah,
like
we could. I'm ambivalent. If other people feel strongly, I don't care that much.
my thought is it should be with the EIP editor itself. Like they should have authority of, like, we are giving everything to the EIP editor. We are saying that they are the boss and they would look into everything. So the like topmost thing is the number that it is referred with. But that's again me.
Is anyone else hear Edson repeating himself? I think either he's lagging or I'm lagging. I can't tell which.
Right now, I hear no one talking. So.
I can maybe try to rejoin. I should be using headphones, so there shouldn't be an echo.
No, it's not an echo. It's like you'll say something and then like maybe a minute later, I'll hear you say the exact same thing again. And it's only you. I'm not hearing it from anyone else.
Let me try rejoining.
Okay, sorry. I already rejoined. It didn't fix, so maybe I'll fix.
Any other thought on this proposal on EIP number and PR number?
Like I said, I'm ambivalent. I can go either way. I think that right now, the editor telling someone what the number to use is by far the easiest part of the job.
I agree.
And so it's very minor to me to have to tell people, hey, like it's just, triple backtick suggestion, type in the number, triple backtick. Like it's super easy for me, super easy for the author. And so that's why I don't really care. Like there's so many more time consuming problems when as an editor, that one's easy.
Okay, so I'm not sure, like we should mark it as like decision item, or should we just keep it open for one more meeting and share it outside this group, present group, to get some more response on that. If general opinion is it does not matter, I'm fine with that.
So here's can you hear me?
Yeah, better.
So here's the thing for when I was first looking at the EIP repo. So I thought that you needed to have a number first to even create a PR, which was an understanding on my part until I did research and like, oh, the PR number is the EIP number. So I was thinking of contacting an EIP editor just to get an EIP number just to open the PR, because most EIPs, it's the file name is the EIP number. So it would be weird to open a PR with a file name that's just empty.
I think that's what is traditionally done. We just open a pull request with the file name, and later on we add the EIP number to it, and it accepts it. Like it works that way. I don't know.
So for an author, I think that the situation is going to be basically the same, because
We can't hear you.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm lagging. I will try to just listen and pipe up. I have some importance.
Okay. So do we have something like some consensus here before we move on, or do we want to keep it open for one more meeting and then decide on this part?
I think it's fine. So like all I was suggesting is maybe specifying in EIP1 that typically the EIP number is the PR number. Because right now it looks like editors are writing the EIP number for every single EIP.
Sure, like as far as I remember, it is already mentioned in there, but not all the time editors do that. Like in my cases, I have made 3-4 pull requests. So for a couple of files, when it was not getting a bot pass, so like Glenn suggested, Micah suggested, then I went ahead and I corrected it, wrote the EIP number, and then it started showing me the green check. So it was fine by me.
I mean, I haven't checked recently, but last I remember, it wasn't mentioned in EIP1.
Okay. Okay. Anyone has anything concluding on this topic? Okay, then in that case, like would like to keep it open, like maybe add it only this point before you go ahead and make a pull request for changing this particular point, like the EIP number would be added by the author itself, and it does not come in the responsibility of EIP editors, just this point. And let's some more opinion on it. If people think that it is not very important thing and like it can go and all the authors should go ahead and do that, that will be added in the pull request, the one you are creating for.
I'll make 2 separate pull requests. So
okay. Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Then it would not be dependent upon whatever you are trying to make pull request for EIP template, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so are we good to move on? Oh my God, we are. Okay, so there are a few other topics that we have to touch today. I am not sure like we would be able to get on all of them, but there is one topic which was suggested by Mika about the Mika has too much power. Is it something that we would want to discuss now? I see that Mika has written a like big comment about it. Also, Greg responded to that at this point of time, only Exec, Subtacular, Greg, and Mika are working on it. My hope is with having more editors on board, this problem can be solved. I mean, I have no problem having Mika so much of power, but it's like on his part, he is getting a lot of work to do, lot of responsibility on him. So I believe that having more editors will help. The biggest question would be like, how do we invite people to be, considered for EIP editor? One suggestion we have, like client, as Edson mentioned, but what are the other ways how we can invite people?
Yeah, I agree. I think it might just be a side effect of there not being many active editors. I think what Micah can do in those situations is just tag the currently active editors to mediate the rest of the discussion.
So yeah, historically, selection of editor was simple, like the present editor, they select somebody, and that person is now editor, and they can start taking up responsibility. But I think we can, I mean, if it is okay with the group, we can make a, tweet about it, asking for inviting for editors, and let's see if people who are from the community and they are interested. It's just that they are not aware of, like, we are looking for more editors. If they show up, then we can pass along the names. Or if there are any other suggestions of how we can invite these people, because we need more than one, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we could start with looking at who's already active in the EIP repo.
Okay.
Maybe we could ask current core developers, since they already have an understanding of like Ethereum. They should have like at least an intermediate, if not advanced, understanding of Ethereum.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like historically, those people are editors. They have done this responsibility in past. So if someone is interested now, we can possibly invite them.
Yeah, like I think I'd be comfortable inviting anyone from Geth, anyone from Nethermind, anyone from Besu, just anyone from there would be a good candidate, or like and
Nice.
like the rest of the clients.
I suspect the problem is going to be time availability. Like my understanding is the core developers are all currently way overworked.
Okay, so in that case, maybe this document that Edson is working on, like specifying what is the expectation, 5 hours a week would maybe, I'm not sure if they are comfortable or like taking out time and doing it. It doesn't harm to, check with them. Maybe we can make the announcement and see what's the response we are getting.
Yeah, so the time requirement was minimum 0 to 5 hours. So, I mean, even 1 hour a week is fine as long like 1 hour of work for EIP repos. I don't think it takes much time to review EAPs because it's mostly just approving or specifying why it's not approved.
I don't know, maybe Mika is the best person to speak
The most
here.
time-consuming part is teaching. The most time-consuming part is teaching people how to write good standards. Like most people don't. It doesn't come naturally to.
So maybe we should put more time into education.
What if we
Yes,
created
if
like
we think that people.
What if we
Go ahead.
created like an online course or something? Like in
I'm definitely a fan of educating people more. The thing I worry about is that the people won't go educate themselves before they create an EIP, and then like are we supposed to just be like, if someone shows up and writes an EIP and it's bad, am I supposed to just say, go take this course and come back, or should I feel that's a little bit rude, but I mean at the same time I don't have infinite time, so that may be the only option I have.
Yeah, so I was thinking not write an entire course, but there could be say there's something that they miswrote, or something that they have that isn't meeting the requirements of a specification. Instead of writing it out entirely, you could summarize it and then link to an external source that says, read this to understand completely what I'm saying.
you could also like say create a core, or I mean just think about like a documentation for how it works, and then you can just reference that documentation whenever you have a problem, with that documentation having like the full explanation regarding the problem itself. That's like relatively common or whatever. That might be easier.
Yeah, personally, if it was a course, I mean, you can call it like a course or documentation or whatever it is. But I think having, the editor being able to link just like not having to teach, because I feel like all the teaching that you're doing, Micah, is probably could have been put into a course anyways, probably, I would assume. So if there was this like place for people to go to, for Micah can just be like, okay, well, I mean, you're way off base, start here. I think that might just streamline the process potentially a little bit easier.
I mean, like, because we do want more editors, but if most of their time is being spent educating, we could just do the education beforehand and then have the editors like back. And because like ultimately like one of the larger goals is just reducing the backlog. But I still think we should add more editors, and we should brainstorm how to onboard more editors.
I'll agree. Like giving them education, I mean, like having some documentation part or some reference material, at least will offload a little bit from the editor's job.
Yeah, Mike, I see your mic moving, but I'm not hearing anything.
Regarding So I think that we need more editors. 2 reasons. One, to help keep up with everything. Like I fall behind frequently, and it's hard to catch up. And we still have a backlog of PRs that haven't been touched for a year because I have not. Like currently, I only try to keep up. I do not try to clear the backlog. If we had more editors, we could do both. The second thing we need more editors for is so that I don't have so much power. And so even if we do reduce my workload, I still think we need more editors so that if I decide I don't like informational EIPs, I don't have the power to unilaterally implement that just because no one else is merging EIPs. And at the moment I do. And so because I don't like informational EIPs are de facto banned from the repository because I won't merge them. And I do not think that I should have the power to do that, like without discussion, without agreement. Like no one agrees with me on this. It's just my personal opinion. Yet that is effectively what is happening, and I do not like that. And so even if we do reduce my workload, I still do think we need more editors.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So yeah, I think the best way ahead is like we should try to first finish up with this document, the Medium post that Hudson would be working on. Then we'll try to reach out the core developers or the people who are heavily engaged in Ethereum development, if they would be interested to be, editors to be giving some time, maybe an hour a day or something like that. Then we can set expectations and let's see how it turns out to be. But I think that is certainly needed at this time. What happens, like it's my experience, like as Mika mentioned that when he says that information EIP is not agreeing to it and it's there, nobody else is there to either take a decision whether to close it, not move ahead with it, or maybe merge it. It's there forever, and after 3 months, it will be closed automatically. Nothing can be done about it. So we should not just let go any proposal just because nobody is there to attend. There should be a decision before we are going to close a pull request. So I think that is something certainly to be looked into. Okay, so I think this is not something that we can decide right away. It's going to take time. Maybe in next 3-4 meetings, we would be in a good position to speak more about it, how we are proceeding. And like we are almost time, I would quickly like to cover a few things which is coming from the action item from the previous meeting. Lightline shared a Twitter account, EIP info for tweeting EIP updates. I have shared that with James, but if else is interested, they can get in touch with James on this part. There is another item, should meta and information EIP be part of EIP at all? So that was listed here in today's agenda, like EIP repository scope, but we could not cover it. It's a long discussion and we could not cover it in this time. So I'm going to move it to the next meeting. And Pooja will reach out to EIP authors to get them to follow the documented network upgrade Mika. And I mentioned this in the all core dev meeting that the authors should be creating pull requests to change the status of their proposals, which are getting into Berlin. Mika reached out to Aragon to tell them they need to put in comment to EIP 3000. I'm not sure, Mika, is it a closed item now?
Yeah, that was handled. I told them to add content, and they did after like a day, and then it got merged.
Great. Move agenda item 4 to 6 to the next meeting that we try to cover in this meeting. And yeah, that's all from the previous meeting. Anything else people would like to cover today? We are like 1 minute past the time, but yes, it's something that can be quickly seen. I don't see a Lightline or James on the call or Hudson, so skipping the triaging permission item, but anything else if anybody would like to discuss. Cool. So we made good progress. We have some decisions or the to-dos for us. Thank you all for joining today. See you in 2 weeks, November 4th, 2020. One more thing, like on November 4th, the time is going to be changed for the daylight. People living in daylight area like EST is going to change. So we be sure that the meeting is at 1500 UTC, even if it is like change in your zone. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. See everyone in 2 weeks.
Yep, see you guys later.
Bye-bye.